Good morning, everyone. My name is Mighty Stream. I'm going to do your August the 1st, just for today, in a meditation. Hope you're doing well this morning. I'm excited to finally have made it to the month of August. I'm expecting a great day. I hope you're doing the same. Okay, hopefully you can see that the title of this meditation is Freedom from Guilt. Freedom from Guilt, August 1st. Our addiction enslaved us. We were prisoners of our own mind and were condemned by our own guilt. Basic text, page 7. Guilt is one of the most commonly encountered stumbling blocks in recovery. One of the more notorious forms of guilt is the self-loathing that results when we try to forgive ourselves, but don't feel forgiven. How can we forgive ourselves so we feel it? First, we remember that guilt and failure are not links in an unbreakable chain. Honestly, sharing with a sponsor and with other addicts shows this to be true. Often the result of such sharing is a more sensible awareness of the part we ourselves have played in our affairs. Sometimes we realize that our expectations have been too high. We increase our willingness to participate in the solutions rather than dwelling on the problems. Somewhere along the way, we discover who we really are. We usually find that we are neither the totally perfect nor the totally imperfect beings we have imagined ourselves to be. We need not live up to or down to our illusions. We need only live in reality. Just for today, I am grateful for my assets and accept my liabilities. Through willingness and humility, I am freed to progress in my recovery and achieve freedom from guilt. Beautiful. Let's take a moment of silence followed by the we version of the Serenity Prayer. Moment of silence now, please. Thank you. God, grant us the serenity to accept this. God, grant us the serenity to accept the things that we cannot change, the courage to change the things that we can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today, please and thank you. It seems one of the things I cannot change is my wake up brain. My wake up brain is something else. So, yeah. So, you got like a duality of the serenity prayer at the beginning there. I guess I really needed it. Okay, you guys, we're talking about freedom from guilt. I want to talk a little bit about addiction enslaving us. It says here, and it's a quote, our addiction enslaved us. We were prisoners of our own mind and were condemned by our own guilt. Now, I have heard many a recovering individual say, I was a prisoner of my own mind and I had the key in my back pocket. I've heard that before. And I thought it was, oh, that's so creative. But it's right here, right? And I'm sure this isn't a new topic, being free from our own self-made prisons, right? It's not a new topic. And I would dare to say, if we are willing to honestly analyze this topic, I would dare to say that everyone listening has at some point in time been told they were forgiven, put themselves on their eighth step, attempted to make direct amends to themselves, talked about forgiving themselves. And we did so much. We did so much, especially to those that love us. We caused great harm. But most of all, we harmed ourselves. And to get to a point where you actually feel the forgiveness, the forgiving of ourselves, people in general are hard on themselves. People in general have high expectations for themselves. And because of the act of addiction, at some point in time, the expectations just they didn't go out the window. They were always there. Our core values were always there, but they weren't attainable. We couldn't hold to them because of the lifestyle, the decision making of just getting high changes our mind. That's why we called it mind and mood altering drugs, right? It was mind and mood altering, which means that, okay, maybe you do think things through when you're not high. Maybe you do. But more than likely, if you're high, you don't. And in that state of mind, there's a lot of things we will do that in our right mind, looking back, we have a hard time forgiving ourselves. And so I want to speak to that. And I want to say, how do you feel it? How can you really feel self-forgiveness? One of the things that we have to remember is that guilt and failure are not in this link of an unbreakable chain. Guilt and failure, that link that they have, it can be broken, but it's broken with effort, honestly sharing with our sponsors and other people. It causes us to have sensible awareness of the part that we play, right? We're talking about being able to sit down and talk with your sponsor over your your fourth and fifth step, right? They go together. Being able to have a conversation and having a sponsor that will say, there's so much in what you just told me that we need to unpack. You're beating yourself up over how you responded to someone, right? Stabbing you in the back. Well, it could be literal, but I'm talking figuratively. You're having all of this guilt and shame over the fact that you are responding to someone that has stabbed you in the back. Now, maybe it's a literal energy of injury physically, right? And though you could have taken control of your response, you weren't where you are right now. The way you responded, you should not have put your hands on that person. That's where you were wrong. But all this other stuff that you're carrying, it was initiated by someone else doing a different wrong, and they need to own their part. Your part is figuring out how to respond in uncomfortable situations without putting your guards up, your dukes, wanting to fight, putting your hands on people, because you can go to jail clean. Matter of fact, there's a few people I know who went to prison clean because they could not change the behavior. They would not look at the exact nature of their wrongs. But when you do that, there is such a sensible awareness that comes about from just being able to share with other people. Because when you begin to share with other people, like your sponsor or other addicts that you trust, they give back to you what I call a balanced view, a perspective that is proper. They help you to right size your situation. So that's one of the things that we do. Sometimes we have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others. You remember that? Reading that in the basic text? It talks about relationships tend to be a huge stumbling block because we tend to place unrealistic expectations on ourselves and others. Now, when that happens, what is one to do? Because if you are feeling guilty about something that you had a high expectation of yourself over, to begin with, it wasn't even realistic. But for whatever reason, you thought it was realistic. And now you're beating yourself up over the fact that you failed to meet that standard that you set. This is where I believe doing the step work is very helpful because a lot of times we have these unrealistic expectations of ourselves and others based upon our lived experience. And in that lived experience, we've judged other individuals that they just didn't meet our expectation. And maybe they caused us a lot of harm in that. And so we tell ourselves, I'll never do that. I will never do that. I will never act like that. I will never talk like that. I will never do. And we put this absolute out there. And when you throw an absolute out there is a tendency because of our human nature. When you fail that absolute, now all of a sudden all bets are off. You no longer want to engage, you're feeling guilty, maybe even shame. But to begin with, the standard, the thing that you're talking about, right? This expectation in and of itself was not realistic. You set yourself up for failure with these high expectations. Now, I'm not saying don't have dreams and have visions and things that you want to accomplish in life. I'm not saying that at all. Absolutely. We should have dreams, things that we want to do and accomplish, right? So I'm not saying don't do that, but I'm saying that a lot of the times the expectations that we have, these standards that we set for ourselves are really birthed out of a place of pain, feelings of abandonment, and rejection. And when that happens, the issue now becomes, what do I do? Like, how do I handle it? Well, in order to handle it in a manner that reduces the guilt, reduces the shame, is one, you have to find out the exact nature. And out of the exact nature and out of the sharing with other individuals, we begin to take the key out of our back pocket and release ourselves from this self-made prison, from our pseudo expectations, these false expectations, right? And when you get the feedback from someone else that cares about you, and I keep emphasizing that because it's almost impossible to do a thorough fourth and fifth step with someone that you don't trust. Okay. So once you do this, and it doesn't always have to be your sponsor, but once you do this, now the balanced view begins to make itself known. The expectation that is not appropriate, never was, begins to show itself. And you're looking at that with different eyes now. You're like, how in the world at 11 years old did I expect that I could be responsible for all of my siblings that are older than me and my mom? How in the world did I assume that responsibility to protect and provide for everyone and make sure that everyone was okay? Where did that come from? And now today you wonder why you're codependent. Come on. So the point that I'm making is that it's in the sharing. The releasing of yourself from that self-made prison is in the sharing, honestly. Not lying by omission, telling half the story, but trusting whoever you're dealing with enough to tell them all of the story so that they can say, you know what? I don't know where you got that from at 11 years old, but it sounds like to me, right? The exact nature of this is fear of abandonment, fear of losing other things, fear of losing people. And so you have this ideal that if I can control everything and take care of everything and everyone, I won't ever have to lose anything anymore. You got that from being 11 years old and having that heavy weight of parentification laid on you. There's no way you should have been parenting every child in the house. And you're the youngest. No, you have to let that go because that's not an expectation, right? That's not a real expectation. You should have never had that. You have to allow yourself room to forgive yourself now. Just like you would someone else that told you the same story, you need to do it for yourself. See the power in that therapeutic value of one addict helping another being without parallel? Do you see that? This is where this meditation, freedom from guilt, is trying to take you. We were prisoners of our own mind and were condemned by our own guilt. And you can be free of that when you begin to do the work of the program, releasing yourself, not just talking about it. I shared this at a meeting yesterday at my home group. Not just talking about it, but being about it, right? You can get a lot of people that just got diarrhea of the mouth. They just run their mouth all the time about, right? Recovery, the basic text, quoting everything, right? But they live like they have no higher power, no God. They live in a self-centered state of mind because everything they say shows you how self-consumed they actually are, right? That's not who we're trying to be today. That's not who we're trying to be. But if you are willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work, you can say this just for today. I am grateful for my assets and accept my liabilities. Through willingness and humility, I am freed to progress in my recovery and achieve freedom from guilt. And not only are you free to do it, you will do it. And as you begin to do it, you will love that feeling of being free, that weightlessness. You will begin to enjoy that. So much so to the point that you will make a decision. Even if I have the opportunity to alter my mind to use something to alter my mind, my mood, I will not do it because the freedom that I have, this process of releasing myself from the self made prison, is too wonderful to forsake. Who's trying to run back to being enslaved to their active addiction? Who's trying to do that? People relapse all the time. But have you ever had a honest discussion with yourself and someone else about what is going on at the point of relapse? It's an expectation, generally, a pseudo expectation that has not been able to be fulfilled, and a lack of acceptance and self acceptance. And as a result, that just forget it attitude steps in, and before you know it, you're taking a hit. Okay. My name is Mighty Stream. I've enjoyed talking to you this morning. I'm going to have a beautiful August the 1st. I'm so excited to be in the month of August. I hope that you have a beautiful day on purpose. I intend to, and I will be doing the next meditation for the spiritual principle a day for August 1st and load that up for you. But in the meantime, I want you to have a beautiful day on purpose, and I will talk to you soon.